Welcome to Higher Callout.
All right, Jeff Parker, welcome to the podcast, man. Glad we finally got you on.
Thanks for having me. It's been like 2 years in the making, I think.
Yeah.
We talked about this.
We finally got it done.
Yeah, for sure.
So since it is your first time on, you mind giving us a brief background of yourself so I don't screw it all up?
Yeah. Current firefighter paramedic in Northeast Ohio. Been a fireman since 2010, I think now. Got my medic in 12. And before that, I was in the Army for 12 years. And then...
Oh, you did 12 years?
Yeah, 12 years.
Dang.
So transitioned into the fire service, which was an awesome transition for me because I was like lost in the sauce and I didn't know what I was going to do because I didn't really want to get out, but I got out and I had a daughter. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't imagine leaving her. I don't know, young mind, you think of those things, and lots of respect for the dudes that can do it, but I wasn't one of them. So
what'd you do in the Army?
I was an MP. So my dream was actually always to be a cop, believe it or not.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So when I got out, I started taking police and fire tests. And that was when they just had enacted that drop program. Mm-hmm. So nobody was hiring. You know, dudes were staying 8 years longer than probably they should have sometimes. But I finally got hired on after taking 25 tests.
No kidding.
Yeah. 25 tests and 2 agilities every year. And then some of the departments like Youngstown, as an example, they had their own agility, which was probably one of the hardest agilities I've ever done. If anything. Yeah, it was wild. Like even the Kaiser sled was weighted. They threw a 45-pound plate on
They could be picky, but it's not like it is now.
What's that?
It's not, it's not like now.
Back in that
then
time,
they could be really picky.
When you took 25 tests, I mean.
They were super, because, like when I took Akron's test, there was probably 3,000, 4,000 guys, and I think they were going to hire 39. Dude. And I thought I thought I'd be good. I had the military extra credit. And problem with the military extra credit is I'm terrible at math besides med math.
Right.
And I always chewed up my 20% extra credit in the math portion.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
At least it gave you a head start.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the only reason I got hired. Probably the only reason I got hired in my current department too. So I need that extra credit.
For sure.
But I transitioned to the fire service and honestly, I fell in love with it. I really did. I started out at a very small place and gradually my next part-time job, I was a career part-timer, as we call them, where I was just working 2 and 3 part-time jobs, making a living doing it, but I didn't have any health care and I didn't have any retirement. So
full-time, part-time. Yeah,
man. And I loved it. Like I got a lot of experience. I worked with a lot of dudes that were, full-time at bigger cities and they lived in that community. So I was a sponge. And coming in as an older guy, I went to the Ohio Fire Academy and, I was the oldest dude in my class at 29, 28 or something like that.
It's like ancient for a fire class.
Yeah. And I think
they call you grandpa?
No, because we actually had a dude in there who was the oldest, but he was there because he got mixed up when they changed the way the cards recertified.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And when they went to the birthdays, he didn't recertify. So he had to use like all his PTO and come back and go to fire academy. His name was Frosty. So I won't say what he was a great dude, grayer than gray. And him and I were buddies. So, but fire academy is where I really fell in love with it. And then paramedic school. I mean, I don't think anybody likes paramedic school.
I don't think so.
It's probably the worst experience in my life.
It's a necessary evil now, I guess.
Yeah.
Was it going to be whichever one came first, like hired you as a cop or hired you as a fireman?
So I took a ton of tests. And it was cop and fire test. So whatever picks me up is the direction I'm going to take my career. Because I didn't love the fire service. Mm-hmm. I really liked law enforcement side of things. I always had since I was a kid. But once I started the fire stuff, and then the climate for law enforcement really started to look
especially around that time.
Yeah. So I got picked up by a fire department, and that's where I really fell in love with it. And because the department is busy, You get to go on a lot of cool stuff. We burned a lot back then. They still do, I'm guessing. So yeah. And then, I still had that bug for the law enforcement side, and an opportunity, the city that I worked for, the opportunity popped up to be a SWAT medic. So I kind of dug into that. I started going to schooling for it. I went to, back then they had a basic TIMS program down at the Ohio Fire Academy that was run by TriMed Tactical.
Can you explain what TIMS is?
Yeah, so it's tactical EMS. It's essentially most of the dudes, I'm assuming now, because it's so popular, have got, your SWAT medics, they've gone through these schoolings and programs. Now it's called ATOMS. It's still based out of Columbus or Reynoldsburg, where it's basically basic and advanced combined together. So when I went through, it was two separate. So you had a basic program, which was week long down there, which was actually, I think my CE certificate said 86 hours and 5 days. We didn't sleep. It was wild back then. And then I went back a year later and I did the advanced program, which was just as intense. And that program's great because they've got a lot of Fed guys, alphabet guys, big city medics where they're running on tier 1 full-time teams. So you really get a ton of experience and energy from those dudes because they're doing it every day, day in, day out.
Yeah.
And that is what I really was like, oh man, this is my thing. This is because, everybody in the fire service has their thing, whether it's ropes or it's hazmat.
Yeah.
Nerds. I got to say that because I think my old chief's going to listen. He's the hazmat guy in Ohio.
For sure.
So anyways, we all have our things, and that kind of became my thing. And when I left that city that I was working for and went to the Northeast Ohio, I didn't have that at first. So I was like it kind of sucked because I was just like a regular dude. Like I was relearning the fire service at a different city, a much more advanced program.
You didn't have like your edge.
No, man. And and it's such a competitive process. It was such a competitive process when I got on the team the first time between PT tests, because you have to be able to shoot the SWAT call. It's not just the OPATA BS that we do, So you're doing all these additional things to, be at a higher level.
Did you have to do OPATA as well?
So in order to carry now, you have to do an OPATA course. So you do like a 40-hour course of indoor range time. And then you go down to the Trooper Academy down in, I think it's London, Ohio. And you do like a situation or scenario based, like a shoot, don't shoot sort of thing.
Yeah.
And you run that for like 8 hours. It's definitely not enough training. But anybody that does this job knows that school's not where you're going to get your training. You're going to get it with your team. So, so I ended up doing a slot opened up at the city that I work for right now. And I applied for it. It was competitive. I mean, there were guys that I was going up against. One of your fellow guys you served with, Rep, he was one of the guys. And I mean, I was going up against studs. And I don't ever look at myself like I'm just a regular guy who just enjoys stuff. And being that I'm older, I have to work a little bit harder. I have to shoot a little bit more. I have to exercise a little bit more. Because these young dudes are tough to keep up with, man. Like my team has got quite a few young guys on, and they're studs, like legit studs. So, for me to stay at the top of my game, I got to continue that education.
Put the work in for sure.
Yeah. And I'm lucky because, we have, I think 9 medics right now on our team. It's a big team. We're a regional team. So we cover 7 cities on the east side of Cleveland, but we go anywhere. We've been as far west as Lorain. We go downtown, which is wild because you see some things in places where you're like, this should not be happening. This hotel, this is like one of the nicest hotels in Cleveland. And we are, hitting targets in this building. So, I mean, we've got former battalion guys that were in the 75th on our team. Like we just have some studs.
Stacked, huh?
Yeah. Learning from those dudes is, it's you can't put a value on it. And to be truthful with you, I mean, I've been all over the country doing tactical medicine classes. I've been to Charlotte. And I've been everywhere to do these. And still the best education I get is from the guys that are around me because I work with such good dudes. And we have such a high level of medicine that it's like I said, I can't put a value on it. I mean, even on the west side, they're carrying blood now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's wild to see. Fortunately for us, by ground, I'm 20 minutes from a level 1 trauma center.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a nice perk to have because I can get a lot of work done in 20 minutes.
For sure.
Right.
So yeah, getting off track a little bit.
Was there a, I've always heard that cops or police departments don't like MPs. Is that a myth?
I don't know.
As far as the hiring process?
I always feel like the guys that don't like MPs are usually like your infantry guys or cav guys.
For sure.
Because you guys are
The guys that get DUIs on base
you
all the
guys are
time.
in trouble.
Yeah.
So fortunate for me, I didn't do any L&O stuff. I did a little bit of L&O stuff when I was in Italy, but I was a bike cop and I loved it.
You were a bike cop in Italy?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I was an E6 then, so I had
Like a motorbike or bicycle?
a
Vespa?
bicycle with the shorts and the
Nice.
polo and the gun belt.
Really?
Yeah, buddy.
That's kind of sweet.
I'll have to
Cool.
find a picture for that for you.
For sure.
I'll post that on the site.
You definitely will.
So, but no, that was cool. So, yeah, I mean, I was lucky because I didn't have to do much law and order. I was always a field MP. So,
Yeah.
did some detention operations early in the war at Abu Ghraib, which is, we all know, is notorious for not so great things. It was a terrible place. It was horrible. And then I did we worked with the 1st of the 505th, my second tour, and we basically lived in the city and we trained Iraqi police, Iraqi army with those guys, lived in the cities with them, went out every night, did hit targets, probably did 200 or 300 raids over the course of a year on different targets.
Damn.
And those dudes are studs. Like they make us look like nothing. So, and then, when I was in Afghanistan, that was back in detention operations. I was a 6th then, so I was working predominantly a desk, and I do like intake of detainees. I brief generals, and because they built this new big facility at Bagram, so we would get all these dignitaries that would fly in, and it was my job when they would literally land with the helo right there. They'd walk off the bird. I'd be there meeting them. I had this big board behind me, and I'd give them this briefing of this big facility that United States government paid for and blah, blah.
I wonder where it's at now.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like probably in ruins or maybe housing their own people now. I don't know. But it was wild. So, and then I got home and I was like, okay, I think I'm done. I don't want to re-enlist. They got me with one re-enlistment. That's my second tour in Iraq. And they offered me 30 grand tax free. So I'm like 24 years old or so, 23 years old. And they're like, here's 30 grand tax free plus all the other tax free money.
Did you have a kid at the time?
No.
Okay.
No, and I was all in.
Yeah.
I came home, I bought a boat, I bought 2 motorcycles. I
did the typical.
Yeah. Man, like I'm not buying a house or anything like that. That's lame.
That's for stupid people.
Yeah. I went to the RV and boat show at the IX Center in Cleveland. And I bought a Sea Ray ski boat off the floor. And I felt so like proud of myself because I'm a young kid. First of all, they were looking at me like this. There's no way.
Well, you're like, I earned it.
Because I'm like telling this dude,
Yeah.
I'm telling this dude, I'm going to buy this in cash. This is whoever the sales guy was.
He's like, all right.
And he kind of chuckled. And I was like, okay. So then I ended up, I came back the next day and I bought it. And then I made them take the ladder off the side so people couldn't climb up on my boat because I had bought it. I don't want anybody on my boat. So then I came back the next day and the ladder was there. And I was like, hey, I told you that ladder needs to go. This is my boat. I was an idiot back then. Yeah, man, it was like 30 some grand. And I was like, I'm buying this boat.
Oh, yeah.
Stupidest thing I ever did.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but.
Yeah, I know. But what are what's the CE type? What kind of training do you have to keep up on for being on this team?
So we do, typically we do monthly trainings. It's usually 8 hours. Like that's actually tomorrow. So I'll go up to Cleveland tomorrow and we've got a house. Actually, it's not a house. It's an old hospital in Bedford, the old Bedford Hospital. And we'll train in there. So we'll spend, like, sometimes we may be the bad guys for the operators. And we'll do some of that. And then we do a lot of our own work. Like we were at it's called Camp Garfield now, but it was the Ravenna Arsenal. And we were there last 2 months. So like there, we had our own pig lab. One of our guys, Sammy, he brought a bunch of lungs and stuff in. And we worked a pig lab there. And then we practiced drags and carries and stuff like that. In terms of like what's actually required with CE, we do enough that I don't even look at it, and we do enough training at work on CE that I don't even look at what the requirements are.
Right.
Because it just never comes into play. fortunately, I work for a department that is big on training, and if you submit for a training, they're going to pay for it. So,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, especially if you're, if it's your specialty, because we've got tech guys. We just had a guy, actually, I just found out yesterday, got on Task Force 1. He's the first ever from our city. So that's a big
Sweet.
deal. And he's a stud, nice guy, former infantry guy out of Hawaii, just a solid dude. So I'm happy for him. Yeah, in terms of the training, though, I feel like we're a little bit different than law enforcement when it comes to that, because what we do in the back of the box every day, every shift, is essentially what we're going to do in the back of Bearcat or the back of, a transport van or a cop car or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The space is just different.
I'm assuming that's why the emphasis is on putting full-time medics and cross-training them opposed to making SWAT guys part-time medics.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, we've got some dudes on our team that are super solid on medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the guys, for example, he's a former combat Marine. He came up with a lacrosse ball where we can use it at part as a pressure dressing, and he drilled holes through and clipped it, made his own little device.
Yeah.
And to see something like that, we love it, because we're like, hey, these dudes are locked in on what we're trying to show them, because we're teaching those guys things too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very receptive. There's no egos on this team, which is nice, because that would get checked very, very quickly because we live in an ego-driven world. So in order to be, effective at the job, you got to pull that back and kind of see the big picture of things. There's not, a lot of people look at, especially in the media today, a lot of people look at the SWAT world or these tactical guys, and they're like, oh, these guys are these terrible people who just go out, they're jumping out of a van. The jump out boys is a real thing, you know? So, but it's not like that. It's just dudes trying to do the job, do the best they can, get back home with their families, and, take some risks when we got to take some risk. But, as far as training, it's awesome. And we've got guys, one of the patches I brought you is from the University Hospital's Tactical Medicine Division. I taught for those dudes for a little bit. The guy that runs that, Joe, he's a career fireman. He runs the program. He basically stood the program up. When I jumped on, he called me and said, hey, man, I'm standing this program up for the hospital. Would you like to come and help? And I was like, absolutely. Because this dude, I went to basic Tim's with him and then advanced Tim's with him. So, and completely different ends of the world at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I jumped right in that, because now we're teaching, rescue task force stuff. We're teaching SWAT medicine stuff. We're teaching stop the bleed. It's as basic as it gets to as advanced as it gets. And we're teaching firemen and cops. So I always found that when we would teach, firemen or paramedics, the egos are a little bit different there than when you teach the cops. The cops are more sponges with it, because I think that they know that that's a skill set that they can use improvement on, because their focus is somewhere else.
Yeah, they right up front be like, I don't really know this, but I can learn.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, you should already know this.
Right.
Kind of
so
thing.
When you transition to the team, it's nice, because those dudes are truly sponges, what you're showing them and what you're teaching them. Because at the end of the day, I always say, you never want to look down on somebody you might be looking up to.
For sure.
Because that's the reality of the game that we play. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, to say that we're highly trained, I would agree with that, but I don't think that it's any different than any other EMS system out there. I mean, I think training today is really taken off in a good way, and cities are starting to recognize that there's a need for it. And the reality of it is a risk reduction for cities.
For sure.
If you've got highly trained people, then your risk or your liability decreases.
Yeah.
So, and looking at it from a standpoint of, somebody in a leadership position, you can't beat that,
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of extra money. It's part of the budget, So, and the residents demand that, whether you're working EMS locally at a small place or a big place, the residents expect the same thing. They don't care who you are.
Right. Right.
They just want to know that you can perform the job, and that when you show up, you're going to do it. So
It really is that simple, isn't it?
It is, which sometimes can be hard,
Mm-hmm.
as you guys know. It's, it's kind of a unique thing, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
What is a call out like when you get spun up
So typically the way we'll do call outs is if it's a planned operation, we'll get a heads up prior to. The time varies, could be a day, could be a week, could be just a heads up like, hey, this might be happening. Excuse me. Or if it's obviously something like a barricade or something emergent hostage or something like that, it could be moments notice where it's like, hey, this is happening. Who's available? Drop your shit. Let's go. So, there's been several occasions where I've got a notification on a barricade or a hostage situation. I'll leave my house, which I live the furthest than everybody. So I'll leave my house and I'll get halfway there and it'll get canceled because either patrol took care of it or they sent a small QRF team from SWAT who was able to handle it, manage a situation, or negotiators sometimes will be able to take care of it. But yeah, getting the notification is pretty simple. I mean,
is it a call or a text?
It's an app. We have an app.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Active 911.
Oh,
okay.
So if you guys have that,
yeah, we have that.
So I'll get a notification there, and then they'll follow it up with a text message, usually from the team commander. We'll say, hey, this is going on. Who's available on this day? And we're lucky because we have 9 guys, and we're all on different shifts. So it seems like a lot of the call outs happen when I'm available. So I get a lot of work.
Cool.
First year I was on the team I think did right under 90 call outs.
Dang.
So, we get some work. It's awesome. And we've gotten some good work this year. We've had, this year alone, I was on the part of the biggest operation that we've had in terms of what we were able to gather and who we were able to pick up. So, it's kind of a unique bag because you can go from anything from drugs to the pedophile stuff, like human trafficking, cartel stuff. Like you never really know what it is. And
I got a feeling it's not going to die down anytime soon.
No, I don't think so. And we're lucky because, the detectives that we have are undercovers. Those dudes are legit. I mean, they are the best that I've ever seen. And where I worked before, the team that I was on down here, those dudes are great too. There's just a difference where, it's funny because like when I went up there, as I was leaving my last team, the way we operated was starting to change. It used to be we did dynamic entries for everything. So you're busting in the door, throwing flashbangs, putting flashbangs through upper windows, or knee knockers, which are little dowel rods that come out of a 40 millimeter or 38 millimeter. Put those through the window and they go in the room and they throw little wooden dowel rods at everything in the room. So dynamic entries were kind of going away. And when I got on my new team, like they are the dynamic entry team. That they pride themselves on it. So, we have shirts.
So you jumped right back in.
Yeah, man. There was a bit of a learning curve, to figuring it out. And then once we were firearm certified, that adds a new dynamic to it because, now it's not just medicine. Now I'm carrying a firearm too. So, there's a constant, and like we talked before, the training is such a high level and they expect a high level. Like the medics should be shooting as good as the operators. Because we don't do that as much. So the training that we have to do, we have to shoot a lot more. I've talked to you a couple of times about, hey man, we're going to, is there somewhere around here I can shoot local or where I can get some reps in and just, a lot of times I'll incorporate that with my workout as doing my draws and things like that.
Yeah.
Holster and
dry fire.
Even simple things like reholstering, like sometimes it's a challenge, you know, dry firing, things like that.
Especially if you have a 320.
Yeah. We're at Glock 45s now. So City bought us a Glock 45s and we got shooting with optics. That was a new thing. I went with a green dot. So that was a new training thing that I had to train on.
Yeah.
The point and shoot basically. Which I find that I do it much better than iron sights. No surprise there probably.
Yeah. After that first little bit of getting used to the dot, then it's hard to explain to people that like, is the dot easier? Once you learn how to use it, they're like, that doesn't sound easier, but like, it is. Once you get over the hump, get over the hump.
Once you can find that in the glass, you're golden. And then just find the glass every time, that dot in the glass. But I like it. And I shot the Beretta 92 on iron sights for 12 years.
Yeah. So,
and
it's like fast food now.
I feel like you guys like the Beretta maybe a little bit, but
yeah, that's my thing.
I loved it. I love the Beretta 92. It was always, I always shot well with it.
Yeah.
Never had any complaints. I never had any bad malfunctions or anything like that. It was a good gun. So.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna get beat up for that one a little bit. There's some haters on the Brett and I too.
Yeah, they can go to hell.
So, anyways, so basic call out comes in. My gear is always in my vehicle. So I'm ready to go whenever. My family knows, like, hey, Dad's got to go. So, and a lot of times, it's early morning stuff. It's not typically in the day unless it's emergent. So usually I'm up.
So you're not a jump out boy. You're a call out boy, basically.
Yeah, I am a call boy. But, so we'll go on the call out, wrap that up. Detectives come in, do their thing afterwards, preserve evidence, and all that good stuff, and we go home. So it's kind of a nice thing. I'm like I said, I'm lucky because I'm with an organization that is full of some gangsters, so I get to see some really cool stuff too.
Yeah,
just to see some of the guys the way they operate.
Do you have a dedicated spot in the stack, or is it just
no? So depending? I trail the stack. Typically, we'll have a point where during planning where we will say, okay, this is going to be our CP or casualty CCP, however you want to call it. And we'll stage up there. And then as a stack makes that first entry, we'll move up behind them and follow them in. And typically, since I've been there, we've been lucky because I haven't had to do any real work on anyone. We get minor cuts and from broken glasses and, things like that. But,
sounds like an effective team then.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, they're very good. Like these guys have been doing it way longer than me, and the team commander's been there forever, and, just a solid group of dudes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're evolving when it comes to where our placement is, because when they bought us firearms and we went through all the training, things started to change. And there's a level of trust that has to be built there with those guys too.
For sure.
Because before you're just Doc, you're just Doc.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now you're Doc that can protect yourself. They don't have to dedicate someone to you to protect you. Mm-hmm. So now you're able to protect yourself. So you're part of that. So a lot of times, like when we're like a small QRF team, we've been on those before, where they'll have like 3 operators and a Doc, and you've got to carry your weight. So like you may have to pull that rear position, which I have personally done before, because that's just the nature of that current op. Because if you're running and we run multiple ops often at the same time, where there'll be, we'll hit the different targets at the same exact time. So in order to be effective for that team and make sure you're protecting them, sometimes you just have to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. Fortunately, like I said, all the medics we have are highly experienced. I think most of them are veterans too, in some sort of capacity. Mm-hmm. So, it works, I guess, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
So.
Well, like I was saying, it sounds good that you're not if you had the most tourniquets applied ever, then your team's probably not doing something right. It's not anything to brag about. Like, I fix my guys up all the time. They're always getting shot.
Well, the thing is, like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the last thing that I want.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to get shot ever, because I don't really want to do the work or the paperwork after.
Right.
So, it's part of that whole control chaos, I guess, where there are variables that you can control within your own self. And the team can control some variables, but you can't always control everything. You can't control what a bad guy does. And
so your main job when you're not fixing people is to not be a liability.
Don't be a liability.
Yeah.
Yeah. Protect yourself, protect your guys, be ready. I mean, that's what they pay me for, is to be ready when the bad stuff does happen. And I think that goes for the fire service as a whole, really. Like, we're paid to be ready to respond to the worst of the worst. It doesn't matter what comes in. It could be a car crash. It could be a diabetic emergency. It doesn't matter. You got to be able to prepare to handle that situation to the best of your ability. So I think, if you can reduce the risk for the team a little bit, and having medics there truly is a risk reduction, a liability reduction, because
for sure,
if one of the operators shoots a bad guy, I'm still going to fix the bad guy.
Right.
That whoever's hurt the most is the priority in that situation. We do the best that we can with that. So, I would find myself, I've been on this team now for 5 years, I think, just under 5 years. And, there's been some hairy moments, just like any team probably. But yeah, I feel like when that moment does happen, and we pray that it doesn't, we'll be prepared and ready to go to work. It's just what we do because we take the reps to do that, So
sounds rewarding.
It has its days.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm selfish about it because that's where I get my excitement.
Well, you definitely sound passionate about it.
For sure.
I've been doing it so long now. Like, I spent my last team, I was there for 4 years, and this one almost 5 years. Like, it's just something, I have a blast with it. Like truly selfishly, that's my adrenaline dump. Like to watch dudes hit in a door and throw a flashbang in it. It never gets old.
I bet it does.
And I've done it myself
like that
tons of times. So like, in order to see it happen in the civilian world and to kind of know the background of why you're doing it, whatever that neighborhood is, whether it's the worst neighborhood in Cleveland or East Cleveland or wherever it may be, like you're probably doing something good for the neighbors there too, because we're there for a reason.
Right.
So I always, I try to find the positive in that because it's a super negative situation usually. So, if I could do that full time, that's probably what I'd do. But, those are big city things. And
for sure. Yeah.
Those days, I'm getting too old to do that now.
So would you say you're an advocate for fitness in the fire service?
Yeah.
Are you pretty vocal about it?
I am.
Do you go drill sergeant on some people? Sure.
I wouldn't say drill sergeant. I would call it like friendly bully, maybe, or like some friendly.
Friendly bullying sounds way better than hazing.
Yeah, for sure. And we have
PC now.
Yeah, for sure. And I work for a city that, they're big with a wellness program. We have wellness docs that come in from John Carroll every month or every other month, something like that. And they go over some sort of wellness topic. I'm not a specimen of health. I love my sweets. If there's cake around, every guy knows that I'm going to have like 3 or 4 pieces. Like I'm the worst for when people bring sweets to the station. I'm the worst. But I also do a tremendous amount of things to try to stay young. I recognize that as I get older, things either aren't as fast, I'm not as fast, or things get heavier and I'm not as strong. Especially when you go on those 3 a.m. lift assists and they're 300 or 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Those are the days where I'm like, oh God, I need a young guy here. So where's my rookie at?
Right.
But no, I think, how do I word it where it's not.
You don't want to offend everybody?
Well, I'm probably going to do that anyways. But, like the thing is I've always, I think anybody that's ever been in the military, you have a foundation for what fitness looks like, which is a good starting line for everybody. And then when you get out, you grade that, and you get into the fire service your first year, you gain that freshman 15 or freshman 30 because you kind of get, I don't want to say lazy, but you're eating food with your guys every day, you're running lots of calls. Like your workout is always. You
give yourself an excuse because you're mentally just cooked.
Yes, for sure. And the longer that I've been doing, I've been doing almost 15 years now, I've recognized that there are things that I can do that are going to make me better at the job and make me to where I can stay up with these young guys. That's the truth. Even at 41 years old, I find that keeping up with a guy in his 20s, even a guy that may not be in the greatest shape, is kind of tough. So, I'm very in tune with my own body, with when I put something in it, how it makes me feel. Cake always makes me feel the best. But, I recognized like 5 years ago that I was just tired all the time. And this is kind of what started my journey, probably 6 years ago. I was tired all the time. I was exhausted, could not figure it out. And a friend of mine was like, hey man, like, have you had your testosterone levels checked? And I was like, no.
Were you immediately offended?
Yeah, because I basically thought I was like a woman at that time when my estrogen was higher than my testosterone because I was like 200. And I was like, oh man, like no wonder this is affecting everything.
Yeah.
So I took the plunge and I started on TRT therapy, which I'm a huge proponent for that, of anybody that's over 30 years old now, because the science doesn't lie on that one. And before I jumped into that, I did a ton of research. And what I found was if you read American studies, TRT is not a good thing.
Oh yeah, it'll get you killed.
Yeah. You're going to have prostate cancer. You're going to have all this crazy stuff. But if you read the studies from outside the United States where medicine is different, You know, we live in a sick care world, not a health.
Yeah, where medicine isn't corporatized.
Yeah. So I read a bunch of the other studies and I was like, I'm just going to try it and see how I feel. And I'll tell you what, after that first injection, it was night and day. Sleep improved. Like my awake and alertness improved. Like I felt tremendously better. And
do you think any of it was, I believe you, by the way, but do you think any of it was placebo at first?
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, certainly could have been.
What did you think going into it? Like, this will probably, well, you said your level is 200, so you kind of know it's not supposed to be 200. Yeah. So I guess you pretty much know that getting it back to normal has got to make you feel better.
Yeah. Know? And when I had my labs checked after I'd been on it for about 6 months, I was around 1,000. And I kind of thought the placebo thing too during that first 6 months. But the reality of it was my sleep was good. And I knew because I never slept good ever. I haven't slept good in 20 years. But when I started that, my sleep was good. And even if it was 5 hours of sleep, it was a good 5 hours of sleep. It was a restful 5 hours.
Some REM sleep in there.
And I could focus throughout the day and I could be more interactive with my kids. And, I was more present with that. So
sleep's huge, man.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't think a lot of guys understand that, especially it's starting to get some press now in the fire service where they're doing schedule changes for 24/72s or 48/96s because of the sleep. And I think, you can't expect a guy to run 15 calls, 20 calls at a busy department in a shift and not sleep and then be able to function for the following day. It's just not going to happen. That's a recovery day without a doubt. And then you wake up the next day and you're prepping to go back to work. So you're really only getting 1 day in between those 3 where you're kind of normal. But that shit carries on, as we all know. So that's kind of what started my deep dive into how I feel.
Were you like, what else can I do?
Yeah, man. And I just dove all in. Fortunately, I have a very forgiving wife that allows me to try a lot of stupid stuff or what we think, or I don't want to say what she thinks is stupid because she's doing some of them now. But I tried peptides. BP157 was awesome for me. I've always had a lot of back issues. I had some back injuries. My last department that has kind of lingered. Obviously, I had some back issues from the military, significant ones. And so
what is a peptide for people that don't know?
It's an amino acid, basically. So I'm not a doctor, so I can't break it down at the foundational level for you.
We're not talking BCAA amino acid.
We're talking like things that your body already
good
produces,
stuff.
That you're supplementing that. So, and I've tried some different ones. The one that I've really felt the most from was the BPC 157, and Huberman Lab is what sold me on that one. I'd listened to it. I listened to that. I listened to a ton of other guys, Gary Brecka, dudes that, there might be some snake oil in some of the stuff, but I'm always willing to try. I do the sauna every day. If I'm at home every single day, I built one.
Oh, that's right. You built your own sauna, right?
Yeah. For like $600. So if you ever want a sauna, call me and I'll give you how I built mine. And I tore out like a stand-up shower for mine and there was a closet there. And I was like, hey, this is perfect size for a sauna. And I put it in there.
Yeah, dude.
And I do it every day. And I don't do anything that doesn't make me feel good. Like I have to feel some sort of result from it.
Yeah.
No matter what it is, there's got to be a positive result out of it. Sauna is a place for me to go. I either read, listen to a podcast, or I'll even like do breath work. And I've slowly started to get into the breath work stuff because 1, it helps me go through a bottle with an SCBA. And 2, I just feel a lot more relaxed after. So
sure, it's a nice meditation type.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm one of those dudes, like when I was younger, like meditation, breath work wasn't even around then, but like
it was all taboo, hippy dippy bullshit,
yoga shit. And I was like, I'm not doing that. That's stupid.
Just eating steak and kicking ass.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm carnivore diet all the way. I'm paleo and shit. Tried that. I can't do that. I gotta have some cake. So, so I got on the sauna stuff. I did that religiously every day. And we have saunas at work, but they're infrared. They don't get hot enough for me. Like I like my sauna at 200 degrees.
What are the benefits of the sauna?
So in terms of like what they say the benefits are, there's, all-cause mortality is a huge reduction. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Like I said, I do it because I feel better. Like I get out and I do my cool down and I just feel better. It's like how I start my day. I wake up, I turn that sauna on. It gets up to the temperature and I jump in there. I'm in there for 20, 25 minutes. Some days, 200 degrees, I get to 15 minutes and I start to get a little panicky. I don't have a window in my sauna, so I get a little enclosed in a box. So like I have to physically and mentally work through that.
Is it worth it to get through
every time?
Now, is that just so you also get the added benefit of doing something hard at the beginning of the day?
Yeah. And what I've been doing lately, and I've been kind of screwing around with it for a couple of years now, but I really took it serious in the last year, was cold plunging, which for a while it was just snake oil to me. You know, it's like, that shit doesn't work. Like, I don't know why they're doing that. You know, you see it all over the internet. You read the comments on Instagram and blah, blah.
And people are like, it's very,
well, and it doesn't
very
help.
heated debate.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that there's a lot of dudes that are doing it that are total D-bags too. And that does not help the cause.
Right.
So I bought a small plunge that you just fill up. I kept it in my basement. I had a tap off one of my water lines, and the temperature came out at like low 50s. So I would refill that almost every day. Like, and I don't know how many gallons it was, but my water bill suffered. So I did that for a while. I got into it pretty heavy. Got some guys that work into it. And the reason I started doing that was because I felt the difference. And I finally got to try a cold plunge that was down in the upper 30s, like 37 degrees. I did 4 minutes in and I got out. And it was the most euphoric feeling I'd ever felt. Like the only thing I could describe it to is like,
I've heard that before.
When you do those long like runs in the Army and you're, 5-7 miles and you're done, you get kind of that euphoric feeling after. Everybody's happy and in a good mood.
It's like a runner's high.
Yeah, man. And I'm not a runner by any means. I mean, I run still, but I don't do any long distance. My knees just don't like that anymore. But the way you feel is better. I call it a reset for me. So what I'll do now, like the way I do things is I'll get in the sauna, I'll go 200 degrees. I'll do that for 20 or 25 minutes, depending on whatever my goal is for the day. Like if I had a rough day the day before, I woke up and my mood isn't the greatest or something, I'll shoot for that 25 because I need to get through something harder than how I'm feeling right now. So if I hit that target, which is 20 or 25 minutes, I'll immediately get out, no cool down, walk downstairs into my gym and get in the cold plunge. Right now it's at 46 degrees. Where my wife and I are working, we'll get to that, but my wife and I are working our way down. So we got a new plunge.
You're both at 40, 46? Yeah.
So I've got a chiller and everything. I've got an actual tub, the commercial tub with a chiller that recirculates the water. So
dude, how much did that thing cost?
That one was $1,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. It's from the pod company. I'm not a spokesperson for them, but it's awesome. Like it's the most economic package you can get. And I think out the door I was around, because I got an insulated wrap for it, insulated cover. Because my gym is in my garage and the garage is not temperature controlled. So it's usually in the 70s or 80s in there sometimes if it's hot. But yeah, it's awesome. So I'll get out of the sauna and I'll immediately get in that for 4 minutes. And that's a struggle. Like that is truly, I'm getting more mental benefit from that than I am the physical. Like I could care less what the physical aspect of it is.
Right.
I care because I know how it makes me feel when I step out. When I step out at that 4 minutes, I'm shivering and I'm like, you just went from 200 degrees to now I'm shivering. I'm like begging for a towel, get the cold water off me and kind of do my reset. And then I'll start my workout. So the latest things that are coming out is that it used to be, for years and years and years in professional sports, you would do an ice bath, or even in collegiate sports, you do your ice bath after
post-workout.
Yeah, post-workout.
I was going to ask you about they say it's not good for hypertrophy.
Yeah.
I just read that the other day.
Yeah.
Everything I'm reading about it is like the post-workout is not good. Mm-hmm. It's better when you're doing it before your workout and you do a natural rewarming. You're naturally rewarming your muscles, better for injury, better for building muscle.
You're letting that inflammation process kind of build what you need to build.
Exactly. So I think the biggest thing for me was it just made me feel better. Mm-hmm. Like I enjoyed my workout more. My mood was better. When I get in that plunge and after that 4 minutes, it doesn't matter what my mood is when I get in the plunge. Like if I'm having a shitty day or the kids are wild and they're driving me up a wall, I'll get in that plunge for 4 minutes and it's a reset.
Oh shit.
just a completely different person. Like I said, whatever.
Saving a fortune on bourbon.
Yes, that's true. So, I just, like I said, I do the things that make me feel differently, make me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And
which in turn helps everybody else around you, I'm sure.
Yeah, makes me a better person to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's, when I was union president, that was probably the most stressful job I've ever had. I've got 62 members and everyone has some sort of issue.
Mm-hmm.
You deal with a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages, a lot of emails, going through negotiations. Had it not been for the sauna and cold plunge, man, I'd have been a lunatic because I was pissed off all the time. And I don't think it's abnormal for somebody that's in a position like that to be pissed off, because a lot of times you're torn on issues because, I'm not an anti-discipline guy, anti-discipline in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of guys that probably need discipline, and it's your job to defend them, protect them, and make sure you protect their job and try to get a plan together to make them better. And I struggle with that sometimes because I'm the type of guy where I'm like, hey, you're fucking up. Like, fix yourself. Like, you know what you're doing. You're out of line. Like, fix yourself. Union president, and if you've been in that position, it's very political.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you deal with city administrators and, finance departments and fire chiefs. And, I was blessed because I had a great fire chief. He made my job easier because we could sit down with a cup of coffee and we could talk about something. There wasn't any labor management rules. There wasn't any contractual rules. Yeah. We just sat down and had a conversation.
That'd be nice.
Yeah,
it is nice. And I'm very, very lucky that I had him during my time, because it would have been significantly more liability for the city had he not been the chief at the time and I not be the president, because we had a really great working relationship. We ended up becoming friends of it. And he just retired. So I'm happy for him. The dude's been in the fire service for like 50 years.
Dang.
Yeah, man. And he's a legend in the hazmat world. So shout out Mark Vetter. Great guy. He made me a better fireman, better president, better just human overall. So, but yeah, had it not been for the cold plunges and the saunas, like I probably would have been a lunatic, because that was my go-to. Like, rough day, sauna and cold plunge.
Do you think did the TRT have any change on your mental health at all?
I think it was an improvement, honestly. Like, to be truthful, when I got home from my first and second tour, I struggled with some significant mental health stuff. I went through a lot. I had an okay support system. But back then, as you guys know, that was early 2000s. When you went to the VA, they were just throwing pills at you. They didn't give a fuck. They just threw pills at you.
They're still doing it.
And that doesn't surprise me. I don't use the system anymore because I'm jaded towards it now. And I've got some great friends that work for the VA system, and they are amazing clinicians. They're the best, and they care about veterans.
Oh, there's definitely, it's like any organization.
Yeah,
man.
But at the end of the day, it's federal government.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that's the problem.
You're a number and you're a dollar sign to them. So they're going to make it as difficult as possible.
Yeah.
And, I think that our generation really hammered the VA on getting appropriate care, getting the things that guys need. And it's not perfect, but it's better than the Vietnam guys had, the Korea guys.
Absolutely.
It's even the Desert Storm guys, those dudes, they're still fighting to get health care benefits or whatever. It is. Those dudes.
I don't want to sidetrack you, but I was talking to my VSO the other day, going for more benefits. And he said he just got a Korean war vet back paid because they failed to do his initial examination for his pension compensation exam. Yeah. So he got back paid from the end of the Korean War.
Wow.
He won't even have time to spend it on.
I know.
But that's sad. It's sad that dude has lived his entire life with these ailments from service to his country.
A lot of those dudes didn't even apply for them.
Because they knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Use the VA system.
And they were thought they were too tough to.
Yeah. So. And that's okay. The society's changing. Like 20 years ago, and had I sat down with you guys, I would have never once mentioned that I had any sort of mental health issues. That was something we didn't do. Yeah. Because then at that time you were labeled. Like, I knew that if I came home.
Jeff's a pussy.
Yeah. Seriously, dude. Like, I knew if I came home and I said I was having trouble with something, I was either going to be non-deployable, which was the last thing I wanted, because I wanted to go back.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back.
They take your bootlaces and
Yeah, they're going to label you, and now you are forever stuck with that label.
Mm-hmm.
And I think our generation has done a good job of advocating for the removal of those labels because...
Well, I mean, the suicide rate's staggering. Like, there's no way to argue it.
It's insane. It's insane. And until they get control of that, you know, and I don't know what the fix is. You know, that's way above my level.
Yeah,
but
same.
I can tell you, taking care of dudes is the first step. You know, taking care of these guys that have given themselves to a country that almost seems ungrateful at times.
Yeah.
So, you know, I could go on and on and on about, you know, the current state of the system, but, you know, it's flawed. I mean, healthcare in general is flawed.
Right.
You know, the veterans, you know, we have a loud voice now, and I think we're starting to use it. And, you know, some of the bigger organizations like the VFW and DAV and those, you know, they were really, you know, they're dumping money into advocacy. You know, they've got dudes at the State House lobbying on our behalf. Yeah. And that's important. You know, if, you know, the VFW, I'll say this about it. It's a great organization. My grandfather was a member of it his entire lifetime member. But it's one of those things where our generation, you know, the days of going to a smoke-filled bar and just drinking all day and listening to tunes, that's not really our generation anymore.
No.
And I don't think they've quite caught up to that yet. You know, we've had.
You think I'm sure they figured it out on some level because it's a ghost town anymore. You know.
Yeah. And you know, we've had a couple conversations. You know, I was a big advocate of our local VFW where I work. We would hold our union meetings there because we go in there, have our meeting in their space for free. They were awesome to let us have it for free. In turn, guys would go and have a couple beers afterwards or whatever, or we would, you know, promote them and try to get guys to join and things like that. One of the conversations I always had was, you know, the days of the smoke-filled bar and guys just drinking all day, that's an older generation thing. You know, that's just what they did. It's where they went to be around like-minded people. What they could do now, which would be beneficial, is to put a gym in one. Put a gym in one. Yeah. And offer a cheap subscription if you have to. Yeah. And do a Planet Fitness style pricing and bring those guys in, because at the end of the day, like after you're done with your workout, if three of us are working out, hey man, let's grab it. Let's have a beer afterwards. Like that, we just crushed ourselves.
That's actually a great idea.
You know, and it just brings, you got to get people in the door. You got to get memberships in the door, and the memberships realistically are cheap. So, you know, if you could do something like that, you know, I'm a nobody, but I've thought of it. So at the top level, you know, maybe those are those older guys that are still at the top level that aren't really lobbying for, you know, they're lobbying for great things at the Capitol building or the state, you know, the State House. But are they really thinking what we need? Like in society, actually what they need to survive.
Yeah,
like as an organization. Yeah, you know, are they doing the right steps? So hopefully we'll see some changes with that. But you know, like I said, I'm a nobody. I can't make those kind of changes. You know, you can talk about it on podcasts and maybe
get the word out.
Yeah. So
GWAT and squat.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. So I don't even know what we were going with. I don't even know where we were at.
We were talking about. We derailed a little bit, but we were talking about TRT stuff, and I think that's what you asked, right?
Yeah.
You asked about the mental health.
I was just talking about mental health.
That was
if you noticed any change.
I think I did. I mean,
because you said the cold plunges and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean,
really helped you, but.
I mean, I've been on TRT for a long time now, so I'm sure that your body gets used to it. Sure. And, you know, I've went off of it for the longest stretch I just cycled off was like 2 months and I felt like garbage. So I knew that it was doing some sort of benefit for me. And anytime you can feel better, like it's going to be a boost to your mental health. Like everything that I do is mental health focused to keep my head in the game, to stay sharp, because I mean, the job that we do, like it beats your mental health up every day. Yeah. And if you're a veteran, you just add that on top of, because you haven't dealt with any of the shit from your past. You haven't dealt with any of your time in the military. You probably haven't dealt with most of us. And to work through that slowly, chip away at that while I'm working on current, there's a benefit to that.
So you want to get close to, it's probably no such thing as 100%, but show up to work 100% as much as you can, to just start with 0 or 100, you know, clean slate every day.
I'm the type of guy where when I step off the truck and someone sees me, I want them to look at me and be like, okay, good, Barker's here. I know that we got a hitter with us. You know, I want to be that guy. Am I that guy every day? Nah, not really. Am I more days than I'm not? Yeah, I am. Because I want to be the guy that can be counted on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even as you get older in the fire service and you got to count on younger guys to do things that you may not necessarily be able to do as good or as fast anymore, I still want to be that guy. You know, I can learn something from a brand new rookie that just walked in the door. I can learn something from because they learn differently than we do, or we did.
For sure.
So, you know, in order to stay sharp, that's why I do those things. That's why I do the physical stuff. You know, I'm currently in transitioning the way I would do my diet. I'm downloading an app that I don't know how it's pronounced, Yucca or Yucca, where you scan whatever you buy.
I had that once.
It tells you like what chemicals.
Oh, that's right. I've heard of that. Yeah.
So I've been doing that a lot lately. My wife's on board with that.
Dude, you're diving in. You're almost.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to find an edge.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Like at the end of the day, I'm just trying to find an edge to be a better dad, better husband, better coworker. You know, I want to be faster. I want to be stronger. And that's at the end of the day, that's all that I can do is just find an edge, you know, to just be a better human. I lived many years where I wasn't a great human. You know, I grew up on the north side of the city. You know, I was a knucklehead. I was a knucklehead for some of my service. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just figured it out that the knucklehead way isn't necessarily the way. And
yeah, I guess for me, I think the same way you do as far as like, yeah, I was like, I'm still trying not to be a piece of shit. And I was way more of a piece of shit. So I don't ever want to get too preachy when it comes to fitness or whatever. Like I get frustrated sometimes when you see people just looking like a soup sandwich, you know?
Yeah.
But nobody said anything to me when I was, I don't know. It's weird. I'm 50-50 on it. Do you tell somebody like, hey brother, get it together, or just let them go? Do you let them go another 10 years before they realize that they're failing as a dad, you know, failing as an employee?
I think as a man,
is it your place to tell them?
I think as a man, I want someone to be that guy to me. Like I'm a huge advocate of seniority-based everything in the fire service. Everything should be seniority-based. Just because you're a senior guy doesn't mean you're a great senior guy. Mm-hmm. But I think there's something to be said for great senior guys, and there's a lot of them out there. And sometimes you need that guy to pull you aside and say, hey man, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? You know, or hey dude, you're fat.
Yeah.
You're bringing the rest of the team down. And you're not doing anything to fix it. I am that guy that will say stuff, and I don't feel bad about it. But I also, the way I do it is these people are my friends, they're my family, and I care about them. And at the end of the day, if you are not doing the things that you need to do for the job, someone has to say something to you. And I would rather it be me than someone else, the chief or the doctor after you have a STEMI,
right?
Or whatever it may be, but it's out of a place of love. And I have great relationships with my crew, and I got a couple heavier guys on the crew, and they know that I'm going to bust their chops. Yeah, and it's just what we do. But at the same time, those dudes are working, so I'm not tearing them up,
right? Because
they're working on whatever it is they need to work on. So it's not like, you know, I'm not this dick that's running around just screaming and yelling at
those Goggins and everybody.
Yeah, I mean, there's a place for that, I'm sure. Not really where I work, but you can be tactful and respectful and still bust some balls, because that's what we do. You know, we're all adults. We're all men. Most of us are all type A people. And if you come to me and say, hey, Barker, what's going on? And I'm like, what do you mean what's going on? Like, what's the deal? And you're going to tell me straight up, and I'm like, oh, okay. I appreciate that, man. Like I didn't realize I was messing that up or whatever it is. Like I want
that is the way to do it.
Yeah. I want somebody to call me.
Not everybody most people don't want that though.
And that's true. And that's like, I'm lucky because my shift that I work on, I've got some great dudes that are no BS. I've got a lot of dudes that were at bigger, busier departments before, much like myself, where we come in the door and, you know, there's a standard that you have to have in terms of when it's time to do the job, it's time to do the job. And we're workers, we're worker bees. And I will always be the guy that's like, I know what I signed up for. I know what the risks were. I'm willing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
The job isn't always about everybody comes home. I hate that statement. Everybody comes home. I will never like it.
What don't you like about it?
When I signed up for the job, I knew there was an inherent risk on my life. I knew that one day I could go to a call and that could be the last one. I signed up to give my absolute everything. There are calculated risks that we take, sure. And there are some times where that risk is so great that the only option for you is death. So probably don't do that.
Are you saying that it's that kind of mentality kind of convolutes into not putting victims first?
It does. And that was the direction I was headed is we forget who we serve sometimes. We don't serve ourselves. When you take a public safety job, you don't serve yourself. You're serving the public. That's why they pay us decent money to do the job that we do. In my case, they pay us well. So for me to say, nah, I'm not going to worry about that. That's not survivable space. You know, I hear that sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's important to explain that because everybody comes home sounds like you couldn't argue with it. Like, of course we want everybody to come home, but you're coming from it for people might not be as risky because
being too safe.
Right.
Not aggressive.
And I think that's what, the fire service as a whole, this isn't specific to my department and nothing I say here is specific to my department. The fire service as a whole has gotten to the point where it's me before them. And now we have, whether it's social media people or podcast people where like conduct unbecoming. I'm almost finished with their book.
They have a book?
They do. I think they have 2 now. I'm on the first one. And the big thing about that is, it's not us before them. It's them before us. And we know that. If you want it to be you before the people you serve, every union trade hall is begging for employees right now. Go do that. You'll make the same money.
Yeah, go put some drywall up.
Go put some drywall up, throw some brick, do some concrete. Like, go do that. If you don't want that risk on your life, go do that. But the mentality of that me before them, it drives me nuts because I know the risk that I signed up for and that I may have to take. And someone's possessions, growing up without much, someone's possessions, that could be all that they have left. Whether it's a family Bible or a picture from the one vacation they took in 10 years, whatever it may be, you have an obligation to those people. Now, I'm not saying be stupid, but I'm saying be highly trained, be smart, be aggressive, be tactful, and do those things to reduce that liability on that really bad call or that fire or that crash. Like, do the things you need to do before you get there.
Yeah.
To make sure that you get to go home.
Right.
Now, we can't control all the variables, right?
So you might as well
control the ones
get as much input in as you can.
Control the ones that you can. And when you step up and you got a fire that's ripping and you got a report of victims, well, you better go do the work because they're counting on you. And I don't care what you say survivable space is. If there is a closet in a bedroom and both doors are closed, that's survivable space. And if I can give somebody back a body that's not charred to all hell of their child, then that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to risk a lot to do that.
Yeah. Because
that's what our job is. Because
100%.
the residents are paying us to do that. So, yeah, I get very angry sometimes about the I don't want to call it woke culture, woke fire service culture.
It's today's current attitude, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of guys. They want the T-shirt, they want the hat, they want to be able to say that I'm a fireman or I'm a SWAT doc or whatever you want to call it. It's not about that. It's about them. And you have an obligation to them. I think even before we even got on this topic and we were talking about the SWAT stuff, it's about them. It's not. Never once have I ever thought like, what happens if I get shot? Well, I've got a med pack for myself, but it's the last thing I'm thinking about.
Right.
I'm thinking about everybody else first because that's what our job is. And I know that the risk is there. So I've got to be able to take that risk. If there's something to be said for aggressiveness in this service, and if we don't continue to be aggressive, if we don't continue to put them before us, the fire service has no use of being around.
Yeah.
Just let everything burn.
Yeah, you can
Just
be
let it burn, make
you
it
can be
interesting.
aggressive without being an idiot. I think people hear
100%.
aggressive and they think caveman run towards fire, and that's not what it is.
And that's one of the big things about the conduct unbecoming guys is they're very aggressive. They rely on the training and tactics and, smoke reading and things that will help you control those variables a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's them before us. And we cannot forget that. So when Lexapol comes out and they say some BS about, how to make this safer, we're putting ourselves out of a job. We really are, because we're going to get to a point where they're like, just let the house burn.
Yeah.
Who cares? And then you go in there and you create more water damage afterwards. Like, we can do better than that.
Yeah.
We are better than that. Fire departments across the country are better than that. So, and a lot of it, one of the good things that we do, and this, I will say this about my department, after each fire, we do a debrief on it. It may not be that day, but it may be the next shift, and we'll sit down and we'll do a debrief. And then whoever the
That's so
battalion chief
important,
is,
dude.
he'll do a debrief with the other two shifts. And he'll say what went right and what went wrong. And the one thing that is awesome, at least with our battalion chief, is we can say what we feel and what we think. There's no repercussions for that. If you mess something up, guys are going to admit to that in that room. On my shift, guys will admit, yeah, I didn't do that the best way I could have.
For sure.
So it helps us grow as a team, helps us grow as a department, and it makes it to where the people we serve have trust in us. So, one of the things that, I is a huge gauge of how you're doing as a department. We had a promotional ceremony last night for the new fire chief. Great guy. He was my lieutenant when I got hired there. And the mayor spoke beforehand and talked about how every single week him or one of the council members they're giving props to the fire department. They were so great when they came in on the call. They handled the situation. They were professional, blah, blah, blah. That's how you gauge your metrics of how you're doing as a department, how your residents feel. Not how the fire chief feels about your department, not how your lieutenant feels about you.
Yeah.
It's how the residents feel about you. Now, there's some guardrails that are put in place by your line officer, by your fire chief. There's some guardrails put in place.
Right.
But we operate in a gray area, right? Everything we do is in a gray area. You can write policy and procedure for every single incident, but there's always a gray area in each of those. And you have to give your officers, number one, you have to give them the ability to make command decisions on the fly in a gray area. And you have to allow those blue shirts to make those command decisions in the blue area when there's not an officer there. So, it's one of those things where if we just keep our focus on them before us, we can't go wrong. Like, as long as that's our main focus, we can't go wrong. And safety is important with the variables that we can control.
Yeah.
So that's my soapbox on that. I'll always stand on that. I'm lucky because where I started my career was very busy to exhaustion most days. And I learned a ton. I had great senior guys. I had, great leadership in terms of, my captain, my assistant chief, those dudes, I learned a ton. And I was able to take that to where I currently work, guys trust me on certain things, because it's an experience thing. And we rely on each other for our strengths and we rely on each other for our weaknesses. That's the most important part, is relying on each other when you know each other's weaknesses.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like my partner on the truck knows my weaknesses. I know his. So
yeah, over time, if you don't know each other's strengths and weaknesses, you're probably not working together.
Yeah. I mean, that's not uncommon in the fire service, but we're a team dynamic. So those things are important.
Yeah.
How was it for you, kind of switching gears just a little bit, but you had a lot of experience where you came from the busy place. How was it for you to transition to the new place, coming with a lot of experiences?
Yeah. To be honest with you, man, I struggled a lot, and boredom was the number one. Being a 30-some-year-old rookie is tough. Now, fortunately, the rookie period, probationary period there wasn't quite as difficult as it was at the last place, because it was pretty tough at the last place.
Oh, for
I
sure.
got beat up pretty good.
Yeah.
And it made me better for it, because I'm a pleaser. So if something is expected of me, like I got to do it. Like I can't have it hanging over my head. So when I went to the new place, it's a lot slower. It's the most affluent city in Northern Ohio, I would arguably say. Our median home value is like $400,000. So I struggled because the clientele was different. You know, I went from being a ghetto medic to working with affluent people who, sometimes treat you like servants.
Yeah.
And it was just different. So I thought, because I had a year where I could go back, and lots of times I thought about going back. I said, maybe the money's amazing. I mean, I had a huge pay increase when I went there, and it changed my family's life. I never had any money like that in my whole life. You know, so like to be able to buy a house in a nice neighborhood, to send my kids to a better school, like that was life-changing for my family.
Yeah.
And I stuck it out. Fortunately, my lieutenant that I had when I came on, who just got promoted to fire chief, he, former Marine veteran, great guy. He is no nonsense, tells you how he feels, has a high standard, and I thrived with being under him. So really, like, he doesn't know it, but he's who kept me there and kept me in that.
Gave you clear expectations and
yeah, man. I was in a box spinning circles and I didn't know what the hell I was doing half the time. And he stopped the box from spinning, opened the gate, and pointed me in a direction. That's the direction I went.
That's good.
And, those are the leaders we need in the fire service, really. I mean, those are the leaders we need in all public safety.
For sure.
Because we have a significant leadership problem in public safety.
100%.
Why do you think that is?
I've got lots of theories on it.
I want to hear some of them.
The fire service, I can speak for the fire service because I don't know the law enforcement side as well, but I could surmise that it's probably close. I think a lot of it is they're trying to take a blue collar job and turn it more into a white collar job. The pay is starting to creep up there around the white collar wages. But I think that a lot of it is that we're promoting people that promote past, how do I word this? We're promoting people that promote past their level of confidence. So we're promoting people that should not be promoted yet because our promotion process is flawed. And that's not specific to where I work. That's in fire service as a whole. Yeah. There's not, you can take fire officer 1 through 4. You can do all these classes that say they're going to help you be an officer. You can read every, building construction book. You can read fire tactic books. You can read all this stuff. But at the end of the day, there's something to be said for experience and getting that rough experience. If you work in an affluent city, part of that promotional process, you should have some sort of an agreement with a city that's not so affluent, and you go and do ride time with them. And you work with their officers and you see how they manage those scenes and how they do incident command and how when you're operating in a truly gray area, that piece of paper that's telling you how you should do things, that's not the Bible. Like, this is how you need to do the things because this is what works tactically. So do both. Yeah. There's nothing, the books, everything's necessary. But there's a flaw somewhere where we're promoting people past their level of confidence where they're incapable of making decisions if it's outside of what policy is.
Right.
So, and like I said, that's not specific to where I work. It's fire service as a whole. And, I'm like an anti-Lexapol guy. I'm probably going to get sued for that now. There's a lot of stuff there's a lot of stuff that is put out where I don't necessarily, I look at it and I'm like, man, I don't know if that's the right thing you want to promote. Like, we're promoting the wrong things right now. Yeah. So what the fix is, I have no idea. The promotional process in the military is flawed too. Yeah. You got lots of bad leaders, but you got some really great leaders too. When I was in a leadership position, I was a tough leader. I was hard, but I always had guys that knew I cared about them. I always had good PT squad or platoon or whatever, always had good PT scores, always shot well because we drilled it, we focused on it. But there was also a compassion side of it as a leader. Like, man, we're going to go down a rabbit hole in this leadership thing.
Jump.
But, the thing about it is listening to the people that you have around you, no matter how new they are. I have a rookie on my shift right now, and he's awesome. He's a rock star. I learn things from him all the time, but he doesn't necessarily know it, but I'm watching and I'm learning from him too. So I think as, an officer, you almost need to utilize the strengths of your people and have some trust. And, you kind of gotta,
So you mean like humility a little bit?
Yeah, humility is a good word for it. You know, like I said, I don't know what the fix is. I just know there's an issue because you hear about it all the time. You know, and I don't know if it's because they're trying to make the job something that's not, or that's so safety focused, or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we're blue collar guys. Most of us come from humble beginnings, not much. You know, we're probably not very many of us grew up very affluently. And we want to serve the public. We have a desire to serve. And it's very blue collar still, you know, and you're asking dudes to risk their life and do incredibly difficult work in small increments all the time. So when you're asking those things of those people, that's not really white collar work. You can't go to any office building and say, hey, I want you to go and I want you to knock this fucking door in. I want you to drag this hose to the second floor or third floor, search it all, put the fire out, and then clean everything up. And oh yeah, don't damage all their shit. Do your best to cover their TVs and their family Bible and whatever else it is. Like, that's blue collar stuff, man. Like, cause we understand like the value of people.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, man. Like, my big thing I always say, and I say this at work too, is, you know, you got to be careful. Of course, guys want to promote. They want to promote to get off the squad, or they want to, whatever their reason may be.
Right.
Don't promote past your level of confidence. If you're not ready to be there, don't go there. You know, just sit tight.
You think there's something noble in turning out a promotion?
If you feel that you're not ready for it, 100%, because you're going to make the team bad.
Yeah.
Or you're going to ruin morale. Morale is a big problem in the fire service right now. So if, you know, you're a guy that you really shouldn't have promoted and you promote, and now you don't really know what you're doing, it's a real problem.
Man up.
Yeah.
Or woman up.
Yeah, whatever it may be. So yeah, I think even in my career right now at the time, if I were to take a promotional and I had the opportunity to promote, I'm like 50-50 on whether I want to do that or not. You know, I always said I was going to be a leader on the opposite side of the house. I want to be a leader in the union. I wanted to help the guys that are doing the job, you know, and as you do that position, you find out it's not necessarily everything you think it is. I'm always an advocate for labor. You know, I'm a predominantly conservative guy. I've got some liberal values too, but I've always been a staunch labor guy. My grandfather was a labor leader for the Ohio prison systems. Like, my only vacation I ever took as a kid was down to Washington, D.C. for the AFL-CIO conference in a conversion van with my grandfather. So, you know, like I have early beginnings of what labor looked like and giving a voice to the worker. And, you know, I think there's value in that, because there's got to be, you know, a place for labor at the table. There's got to be a voice for those guys, because as we've all know, personal side, like, we have leadership that's not always the best. Yeah. You know, we talk about it all the time. And how do we fix that? Well, we don't know if we can fix it once they're in that position, but we can defend against it. And, you know, your labor leaders are who are defending against that. Unfortunately, sometimes you got to defend some shitbags. Yeah. That's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, that's the crux of it.
Yeah, and that's all you ever hear about, really. You know.
Yeah, it's a small minority.
Shitbags and
you don't ever hear about the good stuff that labor does that protects.
And then when it comes to, you know, being a leader, like an officer, when those tones drop during your labor management meeting or whatever, you have to go do that stuff now and take care of the guys out there in that position. Yeah. So, you know,
I mean, from your standpoint, like, how do you see I mean, I know you're interviewing me, but how do you see the current culture of how promotions work and how the fire service is as a whole? I mean, I think there's a significant morale issue across the fire service.
I think we've talked about this before as far as COVID, so I don't want to stay on COVID, but I think a whole generation of firemen left too early and kind of gatekeeped a lot of information and took it with them. Yeah. And there wasn't a great transition to that knowledge to be passed down. And I think there's more emphasis on Lexapols and turning everything into an HR nightmare than getting dudes out on the apparatus floor and doing some work. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, when you touch on the HR stuff, you know, DEI is there, which, you know, always creates a little bit of hostility in the fire service and probably law enforcement too. You know, lots of good things about having a mixed culture in a firehouse. You learn everything from it. I don't give a shit what you look like. I just want to know that you do the job. Yeah. That's all I care about.
I mean, we can obviously, everybody can get along, but we can spend less time watching 8 hours of harassment videos and actually get out on the floor and
a lot of that stuff too. You know, those are liability reductions. So that
100%. That's all it is. I mean,
something happens.
That's what it is.
Well, you watch an 8-hour video. How would you do this? You know, you're not supposed to do this. Well, the fire service is a different world. Like I'm working with 6 of my best buds every day at work who probably call me more names than I've ever been called in my life.
Right.
Sure.
Vice versa. But at the end of the day, like you said, that's a prime example being on that apparatus floor. You know, there's a Facebook page that I follow that's called Back at the Bay, or it might be.
Yeah, I follow that.
Back of the Bay.
Yeah. Where those dudes are showing areas in the firehouse, in the apparatus bay, where those dudes spend their time. And there's significant value on that because one, you're with your equipment. Whether there's a TV there or not, you're out there, you're together, you're a team. And those are the things you do together. Like that's the shit that builds morale. Like allowing guys to have these spaces where they can be free to enjoy their time while also being with the job. So, because if you're upstairs in your bedroom, and we're all guilty of it, you know, that's not where you should be.
Am I the only guy here without his own bedroom?
I think so.
It's a sensitive subject.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for, you know, if morale's good in a firehouse, dude, things are good. Like things work good. They really do. And if you've got somebody that understands morale and what it takes to keep that high, that's a difficult task.
Yeah.
For sure.
Even in the military, like that is it feels impossible to build morale, especially considering the circumstances that you're.
It seems like the easiest way to build morale is doing hard shit together, honestly.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah. Do the hard shit together.
Because
embrace the suck together.
Yeah. When, you know, when there's not a lot going on and the sun's shining and everybody finds a reason to bitch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But when you have a hard task to do.
Think about how everybody is after a fire.
Exactly.
Everybody is the happiest. Dude. My wife probably wishes I had a fire every shift so I could come home and be this, you know, giddy little boy that just got to do something cool, you know? It's
yeah, that's when all the politics and shit just go away and you're like, you're here for one thing, you know? Yeah,
and I found too, like when you work for a slower department, there's a lot more politics because people have time. You know, you deal with a lot more complaining, a lot more bitching, and the politics kind of take a forefront sometimes. So, you know, I've talked to a couple of officers that I work with over the course of the last couple of years. You know, there's guys on the department they call influencers who can influence whether a shift or a station or a house or whatever is a good house or a bad shift or a good shift. And those influencers make a difference. So if you're considered an influencer and you're doing right and doing the things that you need to do and kind of setting a standard, being a leader, an informal leader, I think it makes a difference with your crew. But if you're one of those negative influencers where you're dragging everybody down with you, well, that's, you know, you're going to have you're going to have those issues where.
It's really hard not to fall into that, though. I'll be honest with you.
I'm guilty of it. Yeah. We're probably all guilty.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
You know, I was guilty of it when I was in the military. I was guilty on my last department. I was guilty on this department. But being able to recognize that you're falling into that tailspin is probably, you know, what's most beneficial is just saying, hey, man, like, what are you doing, dude?
That's a good point when you put it like the influencer. And I think the biggest problem with morale, maybe not the biggest, but the thing that I've noticed is those guys that you like being on your shift, they're all leaving and trading departments, you know, going more money here, more money here. Everything just got flipped on its head. So I think most places don't look the same from what they remember, you know.
And that's a lot of loyalty stuff too there.
Yeah.
Like if you've got a solid department where you're working and the morale is good and you know that the city cares about you, you know that the department leadership cares about you. Dude, that's your best retention. Yeah. Or I'm sorry, your best recruitment tool is by retaining the guys that you have because you guys are going out there in the world saying, oh man, this city sucks, dude. Like I hate working here. It's one of the biggest reasons why I stepped down as president. You know, I did it for a few years and I had become so jaded. I was tired of I just hated going to work. Like, because my phone is going off. I got text messages at 11 o'clock at night because somebody had too much to drink and now they want to bitch at me about something, or there's some major grievance going on. And I walked in the door to the biggest grievance I've ever seen. And it just took its toll on me. And eventually I got to the point where it was affecting me personally, and where I wasn't present at home. I wasn't present with my kids. I wasn't present with my wife. I was constantly either emails or doing this or doing that. And I just got to the point where I was like, I hate this job. I got to do something different.
Yeah.
And I looked at different career fields again at almost 40 years old. And I finally just got to the point where I was like, you know what? I want to love the job again, because I did love the job.
It's the best job in the world.
It's the best job in the world. And when I stepped down, it was almost like a light switch was turned on, where I was like,
you can finally separate the two.
I could finally separate the two, where I was like, okay, I don't have to be the problem solver for 62 people. I can just go to work and be fireman, or I can just go to work and get on the truck and have a good time with whoever my partner on the truck is.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal to me. I mean, when my immediate family noticed within a week, like, you're so happy. You guys at work come to me. How's it going, man? How you feeling? I'm like, I feel amazing. They're like, you're different now. Like you're back present. Because a lot of times, man, I'll tell you what, there were times I wouldn't even sit at the coffee table in the morning, which is my favorite place to be, is to have coffee with the off-going guys and my guys. I loved it. And there were times, lots of times, where I didn't even go. I would go to the union office, do some work or something like that, because I didn't want to answer any questions. I didn't want to hear any bitching. I didn't want to hear them complaining about what's going on with negotiations, what's going on with this. And it just made me jaded towards the job, made me jaded towards the city. And I work for a great city. I have good bosses. I have good guys around me.
Yeah.
I had no reason to be jaded. And stepping down was probably the best thing that I could have done. And the problem is I was good at the job. Like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I was good at it. I was able to manage the problems. But I'm so task focused that when I go all in on a problem, I go all in.
Yeah.
And then something else in my life is going to suffer from that, whether it's me driving back and forth an hour to work or whatever it may be. Like, it takes its toll, going to conferences across the country and going here and this, sitting in negotiations and prepping for negotiations and public records requests and blah, 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 the list goes on. So, that was a huge benefit for me, was just being a regular guy again. And I'm still fine. I'm still trying to find my feet under me again, of just staying out of the politics, because there's always going to be politics.
Yeah.
There's a new chief coming. You got politics with the selection process and all this other stuff. All I'm trying to do is get on a truck and go help people. That's all I want to do.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
keep it simple.
Yeah. Because I love it. I've always loved it.
Yep.
I loved it more than I ever thought I was going to love it. That's for sure. So consider I never wanted to be a fireman. I didn't grow up wanting to be a fireman. I grew up wanting to be a garbage man for Rumpke or some shit, or what a mill iron was, who it was back in the day when we were kids.
Yeah.
So, I love the job. I'm finding my passion for it again. I'm getting excited about it. I get excited about, training. Before it was like, oh God, we got to do this again. We got to do that again. I know how to do this. Why do I got to do this? It's not a healthy, and as a influencer, that's a problem. And I recognized it and realized something had to give. And, there's people that are as qualified to be a union president as I am. And the current one that took over for me was my vice president. And he's a younger guy. He was a career guy at a different city before he came there, hired in the same class. He'll be just as good. He's smart. So we'll be in good hands, and I don't think I have anything to worry about. So, but yeah, that was big for my mental health, was
sounds like it.
Just loving the job again. 'Cause this job's tough, man. It's not for everybody. That's for sure. So, and we see that with kids coming out of school, fire and EMS school now. Kids aren't built the same way we are. We have to teach them differently. We've got to learn how to manage them in all their emotions and problems. And, my rookie was a captain in the Marine Corps, and I think he worked at the Pentagon maybe. So like, he's pretty easy to deal with. Yeah. He's pretty easy to deal with, and he's fun to harass too a little bit. So,
yeah.
But, yeah. So.
Well, it seems like you're setting a good example.
Yeah, I try.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I think the biggest thing about me is I care. That's at the end of the day, I care.
I think that's more than half of it is just caring.
Yeah, giving a shit about people. You can't
care for real, and not just when, cameras are on.
Yeah.
That's the big thing.
That's very true. And I'll say this, when I came to that new city, there was a former chief there. He'd been there for like 20 years or something, I think. And when we got the new chief, there was a huge cultural shift in a positive direction, which was awesome to see because you can see that firsthand how significant a good fire chief is for a city. For hiring somebody from the inside that was there. He worked there for 30 some years as a battalion chief, retired, and came back. How significant that is to have a good chief from the inside that knows the workings, that knows the guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal when you watch a cultural shift for a positive because you can see it firsthand. And now they just hired another fire chief from the inside who'd been there for 20 years, worked his way up through the ranks. And I think we're going to see another cultural shift because he's a younger guy and he cares about guys. Without a doubt, he cares about the guys. So his decisions are going to be based off his care for the guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I personally love seeing the changes for a positive because it has a huge effect on morale. It really does.
From the top down.
Yeah. I mean, you get a guy from the outside. You think about that guy that has no idea who anyone is on the department, not a single person.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes in and he's got his own idea how the place should work.
Right.
It may not be the place. It may not be the place that it's going to work.
Mm.
It depends on what his background is and
For sure.
his ability to adapt to that department and how he enacts change and how he moves the needle forward. You got guys that are going to come in and do it with a sledgehammer, and you guys are going to come in and do it with a scalpel.
Mm.
Our last chief, he did it with a scalpel.
Mm-hmm.
There was no sledgehammers. So there's a time for a sledgehammer, but I think that
for sure.
in order to make some good cultural change and shift the needle in the right direction, I think it takes a scalpel.
What do you think we should do do you think the fire service should do a better job at recruiting? Where do you think we should do it? Do you think it starts at as like high school, or do you think
I think it starts with getting rid of the requirement to have your fire card and paramedic card. I think it starts there because you have these people that they go and their first 2 or 3 years is nothing but schooling. And then they get in the job and they realize it's not what they thought. You're never going to find out what a department's like or what the fire service is like by doing ride time. You're not going to find that out. You have no idea.
You're going to find out what the kitchen table's like.
Yeah, pretty much. And what your book looks like. And then occasionally you go on a call where they don't let you do anything because you're an idiot.
Right.
I think it starts the way it started initially. My father-in-law retired from the fire service. And back then they just took guys off the street. You applied for the job. You took the test. You did the physical agility. And they gave you a job and they sent you to school. What that did was take guys who are, I don't know, we'll use a concrete guy, for example. It's an incredibly difficult job, doing concrete every day. And you get that guy who has that desire to serve the public in a different capacity and has compassion and care and wants to do something for the betterment of himself and for the betterment of his community. And I think the biggest thing is that you get rid of the standards that you place on these young kids and you give them the ability to give themselves a better life, a better schedule, a decent wage. And I think you're going to have more buy-in from those people because they know what it looks like.
Yeah. It's a good point.
To do concrete every day. You get a kid right out of high school. Yeah, you'll get some decent ones probably. Good upbringing, hard workers, things like that. I see it. But they don't really know what the workforce is like. They don't really know
they have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, they can't really embrace the suck because they've never had to suck.
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
And that's one of the things when I left my last city is that I knew what it was like to suck. It was terrible. So I had a little bit more, I was more grateful when I went to a little bit slower place.
You had more perspective.
Better equipment, better, culturally. Yeah, your perspective's much different. So I think, but I knew what it was like to suck. Like if somebody came right into that job that I'm at now and with those wages and that culture and that lifestyle, they'll never appreciate it the way a guy that came from somewhere else was. Yeah. And I don't think a high school kid would be able to appreciate that either. You can't, you walk in the door and you're making $85,000 a year at 21 years old and you're just finished college or whatever it may be. You have no idea like how good you actually have it.
Yep.
So I don't know in terms of recruitment, I don't know where you go for it because a lot of it is like the younger generation. There's a lot of them that just don't want to work. They just, it's,
Sound like a boomer when you say that.
I do. I knew I was going to the second
Yeah,
I said that.
But it is what it is.
I mean, we see it every day though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And it can be, for lack of better terms, it can be beat out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not physically beat out of them. In case HR is listening to. But I think the biggest thing is, showing them the value of what hard work looks like. Because at the end of the hard work is success usually, especially in our field. That's the only way you're successful is if you're able to put in the work. I tell my kids every day, my daughter, she's 13, and I tell her hard work always wins. It's something that I have said to her since she was a little girl, toddler. And it's always been hard work always wins. And she carries that with her, whether it's in her grades, her athletics, whatever it may be. Hard work always wins because it does.
100%.
I'm a prime example of hard work always wins. Now I picked a harder path. I'm a high school dropout. Got my GED, did college, all that shit. Because of the military, because that's what squared me away. But my path was hard work, and it won.
Yeah,
I feel like where I'm at in my life right now, like my hard work is paid off for what my kids get to enjoy. I don't want my kids to have to worry about the struggle of life, not eating or, not whatever it may be. Like I want to make sure that they see what that value of hard work is. And even with my young boys, I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. We put a dirt bike track in my backyard. They're out there working it with me. They're raking up when we digging down. I got them working. So anytime I can get them to help me with the lawn or put a garden in or pick weeds, that's hard work always wins. And I just want my kids to be different when they're older. I want them to understand what the value of work is, whether there's a dollar sign attached to it or not.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for
it's important, man.
Grinding them out.
Yeah.
But and I don't know how you recruit nowadays. I mean, the thing about it is I'll say this. So we are probably one of the top paying 1, 2, or 3 in Northern Ohio until you get down to Columbus. And when we recruit, they go out to the local career centers, Cuyahoga Community College, places that have fire and EMS training, places that, Auburn Career Center, and recruit. And it used to be like, in order to sit for our tests, you better show up the night before and sleep in your car and be ready to turn your app in because there's going to be 200 guys waiting.
They didn't even have to make a Facebook post. No. They just put smoke out like the Vatican.
Yeah. Seriously, dude. and now
people are lined up.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it's hard to even fill a test.
Yeah, that's wild to me.
And the money is, we still have a good pension. We still have good insurance. Yeah. We still make a good wage. I don't know.
I think you're kind of spot on with the school because how many times have people asked you like, oh, you know what, dude, I want to be a firefighter. Where do I start? Or I want to be a firefighter medic. You're like, you explain to them what they have to do and they're like, nah, I'm good. Yeah, it's so true. I have 2 nephews. One of them just graduated this year. The other one's will be a senior next year. And I talked to my oldest nephew and he asked, what's the process? And I'm like, here it is, buddy. It's not an easy process. And it's because we haven't made it easy. And my advice to him was go to a bigger city, that you take the test, do the physical agility. And when they offer you a job, they're going to train you. And they're going to train you to their standard. Columbus is a prime example. Begging for guys, right? They're 500 guys short or whatever their numbers are. And they're begging for guys to come down. And they've got some other issues where they're capped by how many they can put through an academy in a year, logistics and things like that. Yeah.
They're taking guys right off the streets. Dudes that are in their 40s that want to make a career change during COVID, they took those dudes. Those dudes are like, I'm not working in an office anymore. I want to go and help. I want to go do something good. I think I believe that even like the city of Mansfield, I believe that they got rid of the education requirement to take their test.
They're sending people to school now.
Yeah, which is incredible because I think those are the ones that you're going to get the most value out of those guys because they're like, hey, this department, this city invested in me. I owe it to them. I owe that to them. So, I think
it'll be interesting to see what the next 10 or 20 years brings.
Yeah, and how the service as a whole is going to transition. Who knows what it's going to look like in terms of the fire service.
It's either going to get a lot better or we're going to, like you said, just let the house burn.
Well, and I think we're starting to get some guys, some organizations and some groups the reality of it is Facebook podcasts and Instagram, Twitter, things like that. That's where you're getting your voices heard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the podcast world, because if you get on a podcast, I keep going back to these conduct unbecoming guys is, first of all, their name is catchy. And if they've got a dude that's angry at the fire service, those dudes are going to tune in, or they're going to read the book. And then they're going to see when they read the book, the name doesn't quite match what the message is, because really what the message is a very becoming era in the fire service.
Yeah.
It's not a negative connotation. It's more like highly trained, aggressive, tactically sound, knowing your job, knowing your people, doing the right thing, making sure that you are the best version of yourself to give to that city and to the residents of the city. That whole me before them thing.
I'm for that shit.
So the book is awesome. If it's great. So you should definitely check it out. But I don't know how much of the podcast you've seen. It's pretty good too.
I started tuning into it more after that Wake and Fire.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the things too, that those dudes do is they call out bad leaders. They call out bad organizations.
Yeah.
There's no checks and balances for a bad organization. It's just like, because at the end of the day, like me knowing the inner workings of city government now and dealing with city government and senior leadership, the city doesn't give a shit what your morale is. They don't give a shit what you do. All they care is that nobody's calling the mayor's office saying a truck didn't show up when I called 911.
Yep.
Because then the shit's going to roll downhill. At the end of the day, like, you got to take care of your own. And as we move forward, and I think some of these organizations or these groups, they'll start to shape our young leaders in the fire service, and then we may be able to turn the ship around or right the ship, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So, I'm hopeful. I've seen a cultural shift in my own department that's for the positive. So
it's definitely possible.
I know it can happen. It's just, getting rid of leaders that, say, you can't work out on duty. You can't do this because it's not healthy for you.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. That's the foundation of our job. So,
or I don't want to be exhausted if we get an actual fire.
Yeah. And everybody knows their own level of whatever it is.
Yeah.
Some days I work out, some days I don't at work. Days that I don't work out at work, it's usually days where I didn't even sleep good or my kids were up or whatever. It's a down day for me. I'll make it up tomorrow, trust me, because that's just what I do. So, I don't know, man. That's.
We'll strive to bring it back, I guess. That's all we can do, man.
I hope. That's really our only.
It's funny how or at least I kind of sit here. I'm like, oh, it's gone. But I bet if like the dudes in the 70s and 80s and 90s had a podcast set up, they'd be like, the morale fucking sucks. You know what I mean? I bet it's a lot of the same. I bet.
You're probably right. You can just think about your time in the military.
Right.
It's such a roller coaster of high and low morale. And one little stupid thing could change the course of weeks of low morale. And
one day you do a change of command ceremony and you have a first sergeant that doesn't keep you there till 1900 just because you can. And then all of a sudden you're going home at 4 and 5 and you're like, what?
Right.
That was just a week ago. My life sucked.
I'm so happy now.
Yeah.
This is so awesome. I love this guy. I don't know, man. Like, I think that the biggest thing with the fire service is just making sure that there's guys like us that give a shit still. Like both of you guys care about the fire service. You're passionate about it. You can tell. You're passionate about serving people. And I think as long as we keep that at the forefront and keep pushing through that and just being a good example. And that's a reminder for myself. Like, I got to remember when shit gets hard or you're tired or you just don't feel like doing something, you still got to do it. It's part of the game.
Don't wait for somebody else to show up for you.
No, because no one's coming to help you. That's the truth. Like, you are it, whether you like it or not. And that's just one of the things we have to find the balance and how we do that in the appropriate way.
Yeah.
So.
Amen, brother. Dude, thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, man. This has been a really good episode.
I keep thinking of all the things I'm going to clip, and then you say something better. I'm like, okay, this one. Okay, this one. So I'm glad you're fired up about this stuff, man.
Yeah,
It actually like gets me fired up to be, more hopeful and just like inspired, I guess.
Yeah, I think, I was nervous as shit to come on this thing because I'm like, man, you really expose yourself to a lot of people that don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know your sense of humor and like
Right,
when you're kind of busting balls and things like that. And I was like, I'm just going to be honest. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say how I feel. And, the guys that know me know my opinions are valid. And, if I can reach out to one person that doesn't know who I am and be like, man, this guy's on the right track. Like what he said, like we do need to do that in the fire service, or I do need to be a better SWAT doc, or like, yeah, training is important, or, just being a good influencer for your firehouse.
Yeah. That's my takeaway today, the influencer thing.
And that came from one of my lieutenants.
Yeah.
And they were looking for ways to improve morale, and they talked about influencers on each shift. And, to be that guy to where you can influence a positive change and stand staunch in your position. And even when guys are like, man, I don't want to train. That's lame. I already know that shit. I'm not doing that. But you're like, hey man, we got to do it. Let's do it. Like be excited about it. Be happy about it. And I've got those guys that do that for me, man. I'm telling you, I got a couple of dudes that they get excited about it and they love it. And the one guy that I told you got on Task Force 1 that just got announced for it, like that's a big fucking deal. Like, that's a huge deal for our city. He's the first one ever. And he is one of those influencers where when he's around, the vibe is different. He worked overtime on my shift last week and the day was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing because he is able to influence everyone around him, and he's a natural at it. Yeah. And that's what we should be striving to be like.
Yeah. If everybody put in at least half-ass that much effort, then everybody is running at 200% basically.
So, it's just one of those things where keep your firehouse in order, keep your home in order, make sure your wife's happy. Yeah. That's always the goal for me. So, and she'd be pissed if I didn't tell her, tell the people when we talked about cold plunges. She does it every day and she's way tougher at it than I am. I'm still a little baby about it. And I've been doing it a long time. And she just gets in there like it's nothing. She's a stone cold killer, I'm convinced. So
good for her.
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Me. So I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you.
Anything else you want to shout out or?
No, I hate everybody I work with. No, I work with some great dudes. No, this was awesome. This was a good time.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming.
Thanks, guys.
See you, everybody.
Later.